I kind of downplayed like how big Thecla was in my story of conversion. Like, this girl's story is nuts. So Thecla is one of the first saints that we have in the early church. So the story goes, at least according to the text, that she had seen Paul preach for about 3 days on the importance of, like, you don't necessarily need to be married. You can actually live a chaste life, and like it's just as good, if not better, than like potentially being married. Now Thecla is engaged to this dude named Thymerius, and after listening to Paul preach for 3 days, she's like, Thymerius, I love you, but like, no thanks. So, so she walks away from Thymerius, and Thymerius is not having any of it. So he gets Paul and Thecla arrested, and Thecla is so inspired by Paul's faith that eventually he just goes on, like, she kisses the chains of Paul, and they're both about to be executed. They're about to be burned at the stake. God sends down rain, so they leave. It's worth noting that we don't have the full text, so it's one of those things where it's like, if it seems like the story kind of bounces all over the place, that's part of the reason why. So they go on out to Antioch, and Thecla is approached by this guy named Alexander. Now, Alexander looks at Paul and is like, yo, Paul, she with you? And Paul's like, I have no idea who this woman even is. Be my guest. So remember, this is the 1st century, so there's no need for pickup lines. There's no need for any of this. Alexander just goes up and just starts kissing Thecla. Thecla is not having any of this, so she rips off his clothes, which, you know, I feel like that's sending some mixed signals, but hey, that's just me. So they're not having any of this. So Alexander reports Thecla to Rome, and she's about to be eaten in the Colosseum. They send out a male lion, a female lion, and a bear. Thecla befriends the female lion because girl power, and that's not the official reason given, but that's essentially what it is. And they just get done with it. The female lion kills the male lion and the bear, and the female lion also dies, and Thecla remains perfectly alive. It's perfectly fine. They try to kill her a few more times, and it just fails every time. It gets to a point where the people who are trying to kill her realize that the audience is dying faster than she is, so they just kind of give up, and Thecla eventually finds Paul. They reunite, and Thecla goes off to start her own monastic society. I've seen some sources say that she's one of the first monastics that we have. There's actually a monastery called the Mar Thecla Monastery that's used by the Orthodox, like where she apparently started her first monastery, and like they continue to keep it alive. So she's still a saint that affects a lot of people. And again, like I said, a lot of people didn't know about her when I first started doing research about the early church. A lot of people were just like, oh, like if you want to get to know the saints, like start with Augustine or start with Saint Therese of Lisieux or Mother Teresa. And it would always be those 3 saints. It would always be those 3. It would never be anybody else. It would always be, oh no, look at Augustine, look at Mother Teresa, and look at Saint Therese of Lisieux. I want to look at someone else other than those 3 because I've already done that. And they didn't necessarily move me in the same way they moved everyone else. So it's one of those things where it's like, I don't want to say that I was trying to be different, but I was trying to find my own saints that like could speak to me in a way that like I needed to be spoken to.
Yeah.
So Thecla's really bizarre story somehow spoke to me. And like the reason why is because it begot a lot of questions. Like, why did any of this happen? Who wrote this? Why did they write this? We have a theory as to who wrote it. This early church writer named Tertullian stated like it was some presbyter from Asia Minor who had written this story down, and I'm sitting here like, dude, why don't you name drop the guy? Like, if you know who it is, why aren't you name dropping him? You're an early church father. That's your whole shtick. Listen to me. Tertullian wrote an entire treatise on this guy named Marcion. Marcion was a early Gnostic Christian. Yeah, you know exactly who I'm talking about.
I know who Marcion is.
Yeah, so for our viewers at home who may not know who Marcion is just the worst person. Like, I'm talking just an awful human being. He believed that the God of the Old Testament and that the God of the New Testament were actually completely different people, and the God of the Old Testament was actually evil, and Jesus came to destroy him. So that was...
He was the world's first anti-Semite.
Yeah, no, it was actually kind of awful. So Tertullian writes a treatise called Against Marcion. It's 5 books long. He dedicated 5 books to destroying one dude. That level of hatred is kind of impressive. And he starts it out by being like, oh yeah, no, the Black Sea where he lives is just this terrible place. It's always cold. There's no civilization out there. All the people out there are mean. Like, they're frustrating. There's no civilization. It's cold. But you know what? The worst part about this place, there is nothing more barbarous and sad in Pontus than the fact that Marcion was born there. Like...
It's almost worse than like the Drake and Kendrick beef right now.
Oh my God! Listen to me. They're taking notes on this. Yeah. Here's the thing: the early church fathers just wrote diss tracks on each other, and I'm just sitting here like, this is how Christianity was founded.